Welcome to Racing Recaps. I'm Sales Managing Editor Lydia Mullan, and today we're talking about Leg 2 of the Ocean Race. Leg 2 goes from Mindelo, Cabo Verde to Cape Town, South Africa, and will only be sailed by the Amaka fleet. The 6 VO65s are on hiatus until the race returns to Europe for Leg 6. This makes spectating a little simpler because we only have 5 boats to keep an eye on, but there's still so much going on during this leg. Before we get into the racing though, let's quickly go over who's sailing. The 5 Amaka teams are Wholesome PRB, 11th Hour Racing Team, Militia, Guyot Environment, and Biotherm. There have been a number of crew substitutions since last leg, including 2 of the skippers. Militia's Boris Herman suffered some significant hot water burns during leg 1, and his medical team thought it would be best for him to sit out this leg. But he's expected to be okay and rejoin the race, so we're wishing him a quick recovery and hope to see him back on board in Cape Town. In his place, crew member Will Harris will step in as skipper, and French ocean racer Jan Ellis will fill the 4th spot on the boat. Guyot Environment has co-skippers, so Robert Stanjak and Benjamin Dutroux will be trading places, with Dutroux sitting the leg out while Stanjak heads for Cape Town. Before we get into the racing, let's talk a little bit about the course. Leg 2 is one of the 2 north-south legs, which in my opinion makes it one of the most strategically interesting parts of the race. If you don't usually follow sailing, stay with me here. There are a few prevailing weather patterns in the Atlantic. North of the equator, you'll see a massive system that rotates clockwise, and then below it, at the equator, you have a big dead zone that we call the doldrums. In general, it's wider to the east, so you see a lot of north-south passages, taking boats all the way out to the west to avoid getting stuck with no wind for days. This means covering more miles, but potentially doing it faster. Now, south of the equator, the breeze picks up again, but the southeasterly trades are blowing pretty much the opposite direction that the fleet wants to go. So again, they're going to have to stay near South America until they can get to the westerlies, which they can then ride across to Cape Town. All that being said, shifts in local conditions here are constantly happening, and the teams all have slightly different boats that handle the conditions slightly differently. So one team might opt for a different sail inventory than another, which means even more speed variation and more angles that they can sail to the wind. For the variety of conditions, you want a variety of options though. But then again, in the light air like the doldrums, a lighter boat will be faster. So then maybe you don't want to bring everything. Not to mention that nothing's allowed to come on or off the boat in Cabo Verde. So these decisions had to be made a month ago in Alicante. I mean, genuinely, leg 2 is like playing 3D chess. So let's dive right in.
Ok, ça peut dérouler.
Leaving Cabo Verde, the winds were light and shifty, so there wasn't a consensus among the fleet about what was favored. 11th Hour and Wholesome PRB immediately got into it with each other, and if you remember from leg 1, these 2 had that intense tacking duel in the Med as well, so it's no huge surprise that these 2 fleet leaders were already sinking their teeth into each other. Biotherm, skippered by Paul Miel, takes an early lead out of Mindelo. One of the sails they've chosen to bring with them is a light air spinnaker called the A2, and that really helps them hold on to the lead despite the fact that the fleet is separated by just a few miles. Those light winds gave the teams the opportunity for a few extracurricular activities while underway. Most of the fleet had minor repairs to make, scientific equipment for monitoring the ocean health was deployed, and of course, sacrifices to Neptune were made. This is a classic sailor tradition that even racers won't skip when they cross the equator.
A little cheers to Neptune. There you go, buddy.
To ask Neptune for his blessing, the classic ritual is to pour some alcohol into the sea, cut the hair of anyone who's crossing for the first time, and generally ham it up a bit.
Okay, Rosie.
1, 2, 3.
5, 4,
Be careful the capsize.
2, okay!
Between Verde and Azul.
No.
What? Yes, so you have to follow your hair. You go where?
If you look at the tracker, you can see that Malizia chose the westernmost course through the doldrums, followed by 11th Hour, Wholesome PRB, Biotherm, and finally Guyot Environment out to the east, with quite a bit of lateral separation between them and the rest of the fleet. Standard wisdom is west is best, but Guyot is onto something, jumping from 4th to 1st during the time in the doldrums.
We accepted a phenomenal job in the first part of the race, crossing the equator in the lead and extending that lead, and then we unluckily were locked a little bit with some rain clouds which we couldn't detect on the radar, and we couldn't bring ourselves into a good position to manage the risk between the ridge and the fleet.
Or 10 days ago we were 200 miles behind, and now we cross in front within a mile. It's magical, goes so fast. It's super cool, super happy to see it like this.
Malizia leads the fleet east, followed closely by 11th Hour Racing Team, but unfortunately they are coming up on this front that is right between them and Cape Town. This kind of puts the brakes on for the front of the fleet, allowing the back of the fleet to catch up to them, meaning that right up until the end of the race, it is anyone's game.
So the final few days of the race are going to be really tough being in the lead. Basically what we have is a huge light wind area in front, and it means that all the boats behind us are going to come with better winds, while we sail in lighter winds at the front of the fleet. So a lot of pressure for us at the moment.
Basically, it's ridged out. The St. Helena High is ridged out from its normal position in the middle of the South Atlantic out across Cape Town, kind of blocking our way in. And so the whole fleet will slow down and compress. And I guess in theory, boats ahead will have the choice as to where they want to stop relative to the boats that are coming up from behind. And by that I mean in the east or in the west. But basically you can't penetrate this ridge, so you have to choose where you're going to engage it, basically. And then the breeze should fill back in, and then once we do punch through this atrocious weather feature, we'll have like a couple 100-mile coastal race to the finish. And if you believe any of the computers that we use, everybody will finish within 10 feet of each other, despite the 16 days that we busted ourselves to get here. So that is us, the end of Lake 2.
Ultimately, Wholesome PRB had the tactical upper hand and won the leg.
C'est bon? C'est fait?
My emotional level is here right now. It's been extremely tough. I got prepared myself mentally for this, but it was tougher than I ever expected. The sailing, the living on board, it's just so intense this race. It gets everything out of you. So there are no words for it, just emotions.
I mean, we sailed well. I think we sailed really well this leg, and we saw boats build leads and lose big leads, and get ahead and fall back. And I think what we can take away and be very proud of is that we were always fine at the front. It makes a third place a lot harder to swallow after the last 24 hours. But I think it's very positive that we were the team that could always be at the front, always pushing. We never fell back and lost a lot of miles. So I think we need to take that as a positive and be very proud of that. And moving forward, hopefully the results will start to fall our way.
Now the teams have a short rest in Cape Town before setting off on leg 3, which is the longest leg of the race and possibly the most challenging. I'll be back in a few weeks for recaps of leg 3 of the ocean race, but in the meantime, for more information, go to sailmagazine.com or theoceanrace.com.